Thank you. I really appreciated that song because I love Christmas. We're moving into the Christmas season, and it's a season of love. And it's just my favorite time of the year because I was raised with the story of Christmas and its deeper meanings. And so today I would like to share that with you because sometimes during this period we can get so focused on the outer trappings of what Christmas looks like, when actually it's such a deep and meaningful spiritual story that touches each and every one of us. So I'd like to share the story with you in the way I understand it, and hopefully bring to you a place where Christmas has a deeper and more spiritually rich meaning to you. So I know that Christmas is a cultural story. It's a story about love. It's a story about our evolution in consciousness, because we have been evolving to know that God is not separate from us. In the history of our spiritual evolution, spirit, God, infinite love, wisdom has been placed outside of us, away from us. So we're seeking it, we're looking up, we're wondering, where's God? And as we have evolved and come to a place of understanding, we get to know that that infinite love is already in us. It's called the incarnation of spirit. It's what this story is about. When we tell stories about our heroes, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, we tell those stories because they have meaning for us. They inspire us to be more than who we thought we are. They inspire us to see something in a bigger and fuller way, and we identify with the story, and then we get bigger ourselves. And that's what the cultural story of Christmas is all about. In Western civilization, it is depicted all over. We can't get away from it because we were in the place of evolving our own understanding of ourselves as the very life of God. This is huge. Do you realize to even say that we live on holy ground? This is an enormous experience. And to wrap our minds culturally, collectively around that is a piece of work. It's taken us 2,000 years to get to this place where we can, as the Dalai Lama said, understand we are the Christ. See, it's an evolution. It's okay for each of us to evolve personally, but when we're moving collectively, then it's like taking a boat and turning it around. It's a big work, but we're there. We have technology. We have understanding. We have the ability now to make the Christmas story actually be peace on earth, goodwill to all people. We're in the process of waking up. So I'm going to go through the story and identify the pieces in the story because they're us. So in the beginning of the story, an angel appears to Mary, and an angel is your higher thought. And so Mary is the receptive part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that's in prayer. The picture of Mary is always in prayer, and the angel Gabriel appears to her. Well, for us, that means that in a prayerful state, in an intention to be prayerful, to be receptive, to be open, a higher thought can come to us. And that's who Mary is. She represents that thought. And the angel appears to her, and the angel always says the same thing in every story. Do not be afraid. Because to really embrace the idea of the angelic presence coming to you, that you are the very Christ, the very presence of love, you have to be fearless because it requires something. And that's why the story is so powerful. So the angel says, do not be afraid. And Mary, in her receptive state, is yes. When she's asked to birth something new, she says yes. I love this part of the story because each of us are birthing something new, whether it's a business, a relationship, an understanding. We're always birthing something new. And our Mary gets activated when that higher thought comes to us. I need to move on. I need to stop doing this. I need to embrace this. Our Mary is activated. But then comes Joseph, because a higher thought, especially collectively, can we have peace on earth, goodwill toward all people? That's a huge mandate. And when we have that, and we're birthing that thought, we need our Joseph, because Joseph is the protection around that thought. Now, I always imagine the story. My mother was very, very involved in Christmas. We used to have to put little pieces of straw in the manger so Jesus would have a nice soft bed. So I know the story very well. I had to be really good if Jesus wanted to be comfortable in his birth. It's crazy, but anyway. Joseph, so I imagine the story, and Joseph, can you imagine Mary coming to him and telling him this higher thought? Guess what, Joseph? I mean, it's pretty phenomenal, really. So anyway, but Joseph, he's really put off. In the story, it says he doesn't want to shame her, but he thinks this is impossible. And then the angel appears to Joseph and says, do not be afraid. There is things that seem impossible. Ideas you have about yourself, ideas we have about the world that we can live in peace. It seems impossible, but I'm not going to shame it. I'm going to protect it. And so Joseph steps up in consciousness and says, okay, to the story, to the unfolding, and he protects Mary and comes together with her. Now they have to go to Bethlehem because there's a consensus being taken, and that's the part of the story. When you have a divine idea, there's also the political arena, that arena of life that you have to take care of business. Sometimes I've had great ideas, but then my feet on the ground, the practicality of it is going to Bethlehem. And so you start off with your grandiose idea of peace on earth, goodwill to all people, which sounds great, but what does it look like in your life? Where's the peace? Where is it that you can be with the story? So they start off to Bethlehem, and they come, and Mary is ready to give birth. And they're looking for a place, and there's no room in the inn. And when there's no room in the inn, I've been there many times. I have a great idea. I think everything is going to go a certain way. And then I get there, or I get to where the idea is manifesting, and there is no room in the inn. And I have to go to another place to manifest that idea. So we can't be stuck. Not being born in the inn means not getting stuck that you are going to be somewhere. When an idea unfolds, and it is a divine idea, God is in charge of that idea, that infinite intelligence that brought us here, that wants to express through us and as us. That intelligence knows where we will be and will have a place for us. We will not be left out there. I say this because when we own the story, and it's such a magnificent story, that when that appears, not to be concerned. God is our provider. That is the truth of it. Anyway, so they go, and the baby's born, and then the story goes on to talk about what happens. A star appears in the sky. There's light. When your idea of who you are as the presence of spirit here on earth, incarnate, when that starts to take hold and it's being birthed, a star appears. Light shines. Your light starts to shine. That idea comes forward. And so a star appears in the sky, and shepherds who are out minding their sheep in the fields are looking up. And the shepherds represent us in our busyness, in our work life, in our busy time. But we have the presence of mind while we're engaged in the world to look up, to look for light, to see that there is infinite presence with us in the midst of whatever we are doing. Tending sheep, working in Starbucks, wherever we are, that spirit is right there. So that's where the shepherds come in, and that's the representation in that story of ourselves. Then the wise men come, and the wise men are what you're seeking. What is it you're seeking? What is it you want to express? How can Christmas this year be something special to you? What can you bring forward? What is it, the gifts that you have to bring? See, the wise men were carrying gifts. They had something to give, as we all do. The wise people in us know what we have. We've been given talents and ideas and creativity to express in some particular way. And when our wise people get activated, we bring those gifts forward. We're fearless about it. We start to say, yes, I can do that. Maybe you're hesitant, and they had to travel to get there. You have to move to bring those gifts forward. If you're shy, you think, I can't do this or I can't, you have to keep moving. You can't stop. You have to really work to bring that part of the story forward. And so they come and they bring their gifts, but before they get there, and this to me is the most intense part of the story, before they get there, they stop off to see Herod, who is the king at the time. And Herod is the antagonist in the story, and all good stories, our own included, have the antagonist. You know who it is in your own life. I know who it is in my life, or how I portray the antagonist, whether I can't do it, or I never can, or it would never happen, or whatever the antagonist. There is a Herod, and culturally there is a Herod. Culturally, we are in a culture that really dismisses the idea of peace on earth, goodwill to all people. Oh, it's almost impossible. We keep awfulizing the world. We awfulize the world. And when we meet our Herod, Herod's on the throne. This is an unhealthy ego who says, I'm the king of all things. And the wise men say, oh, well, we are following the light. And the light reminds us that a king is being born. And Herod freaks out because someone else will be better than he is. Someone will be more powerful. His fear, it's really fear. Herod represents our fears. Now, this is no light task. Our fears. Just look at the world around us. We are projecting our Herod. We are allowing our Herod to reign supreme. That's why the Christmas story is so darn important. I still would love to put a piece of straw in that little creche, because every time I walk away from Herod, every time I understand what he's up to, she's up to in myself, I have to say no. Because what happens is Herod tells the wise people, on your way back, just to tell me where that little king is so I can go worship him. It's always a lie. It's always about fear. It's never about the truth. It's never there. It's tricky business, though, because it's never right up front. So I hope you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah? All right. I don't want to be leaving here because I get into the story so much. So Herod is the opposition, and the angel appears to Joseph now and says to him, go the other way, Joseph. Do not go back the way you came. This is the best part of the story for me. Go the other way. We have lived in such a story of not enoughness. We have lived in such a story of not who we truly are. We have lived in such a false narrative. In our evolution, we're growing hopefully out of that narrative, but Herod still thinks he's on the throne. I'm a spiritual radicalist. Truly, that's how I feel. I feel like I can dethrone Herod only by remembering who I truly am. The presence of love, the presence of God, the presence of that which is calling each and every one of us in whatever culture we live in whatever story we tell. That's calling us to be everything that we're called to be. The presence of love, the presence of goodness, the presence of peace, the presence of grace. We're called to it. We're called to it. The story is a reminder. The story retold is a reminder. So the Herod, going the other way, and then Egypt is the place where Joseph gets his bearings. Joseph and Mary stay in Egypt for 2 years before they return to their hometown because they have to get their bearings. And I truly feel like culturally, we are getting our bearings. We've moved into a global, universal idea. Every path leads to God. Every story is a spiritual story. It's our story. We're making it up as we go along. We're telling the story. And when we retell the story, I just love Christmas because I love to retell the story from the highest and most profound spiritual way. That Christ is a consciousness. It's an awareness of who we truly are. And when we retell the story, we tell it from that place, that it is us. And to do the work of the story is to see it everywhere. Now that story is bookended in our culture with the victory of love, because that story follows one person through a death, a crucifixion, actually, of cruelty, to a resurrection. And that is the story that love wins. It's a story, love wins. That's the story. And so I just feel very privileged to be in this community, to feel all the love that is always spread out through this community at all times, and to share my passion for this time of year, and hopefully you've taken something and really able to apply it. You know, I had a note that we can be addicted to an apocalyptic story, because that's what happens with a lot of the Christmas story. It's been co-opted to be apocalyptic, and then there's an end, and then God's gonna come back and blow up the world and all that stuff. You know, I keep it at bay because I have to have a heart that can embrace that also, that someone has that story, but it's not my story, and it's not our story. Our story is there is one life, that life is God, that life is our life right now. So I just love to end with the part of the prayer that thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That was the prayer that the focus of this story spoke, and spoke so profoundly. And I just join with you as we retell the story as spiritual radicals, retelling something that will actually bring the peace on earth and goodwill to all people. Thanks for sharing it with me.